So yeah, that's my thing when you have a blurred line between being a hardcore fan of anything. Because, like I said, that whole headbangers ball type thing. I know when I said that, I was like, but you gotta understand some people, and sometimes we do it as it's so natural that we defend stuff, being metalheads as we are, and that sometimes it might come across to another person as, oh, you fucking elitist, fuck you. But we're just being hardcore fans. I'm not trying to defend elitists because to me, elitist is not caring about any other thing. Let's say if you're into old school shit and that's all there is to you, just old school shit and nothing else, nothing new, and you won't tolerate or accept anything besides that, man, fuck you. You have to have an open mind especially with metal. Metal is such a melting pot between culture, between all kinds of lyrics, themes in metal. I mean, if you want to feel fucking obviously depressed, you go to depressive black metal. If you want to feel good about yourself, at least to me, I listen to a lot of hardcore because it has positive lyrics in it, all about empowering yourself and feeling good about yourself, and also what I call Swedish metal or new wave thrash metal, which I also have said to at least to the people who know me, don't get offended. Feel good metal, and when I say feel good metal, I mean Swedish metal, especially during the '90s. I'm not talking about Entombed, Nihilist, obviously, but Dismember, all that fucking classic good shit. I'm talking about when I mean Swedish metal, and I'm planning on making a video of this, just pure Swedish metal. I'm talking about not the big bands that came out, like obviously Entombed, Dismember, all that other shit. I'm talking about the era of the '90s, mid '90s to mid 2000s, which that genre kind of fizzled out in a way. But I'm talking about when At the Gates came out and everything else came out before, after that, like The Haunted, Soil Work, In Flames. That's what I mean by feel good metal. And I totally forgot what the fuck I'm talking about. So yeah, there's that point. So I totally fucking forgot what the fuck I'm talking about. And this video is already 17 minutes late. But in short, I don't know if I proved any point, but going back to how you grew up and stuff, obviously being elitism or elitist in certain things, in certain genres, as fucking metalheads, it's you have to have an open mind. You have to accept change and new genres that spring up, because that's the thing about metal. You at first it was basic. You know, you had Black Sabbath, you had fucking Venom, you had fucking Metallica, King Diamond, everything started, Iron Maiden, everything started fucking multiplying and stuff. Then you had Death or Possession with or Possessed, I'm sorry, I keep on fucking up with that name. Possessed with the first death metal album, and everything progressed through that. You had the mixture between thrash and death metal, the the natural state that became from thrash to death metal. And then you had doom. Then you had genres because back then, if you guys remember, Eric and Relapse and Roadrunner, you had also labels like Peaceville Records, which I fucking love everything that Peaceville has ever done, especially with their logo, the little pentagram on the eye, and there it's like fucking amazing. And what I mean by this is that if you guys collected any of the DVDs from Eric back in the day, or videos back in the day, tapes, there was no genre defined there. It was like death metal, and you had Paradise Lost, you had Cathedral, you had what is it, Candlemass, I think it was, but you had Napalm Death, you had all those genres, all those bands, and all those different genres that you didn't even know what the fuck they were until they were defined later. And from Cathedral being Doom, or being that fucking genre that Doom is called. There's so many sub-genres of Doom, like Cathedral, that it's just crazy that I don't even know myself, that I can't keep track of. But for those people that don't dislike the recent genre, deathcore that just fizzled, I think is fizzling out right now. Kind of like metalcore was very popular in the mid 90s, like Shadows Fall. They're still playing. I didn't even know they're still playing. Shadows Fall started out as a metalcore, hardcore-ish band, crossover type thing, and they embraced what metalcore was, like As I Lay Dying, what is this, Killswitch Engage, bands like that. But that whole kind of scene is kind of fizzled out recently, and that's okay. And Killswitch Engage is still doing it. I'm surprised that I didn't know of. Shadowfall is still doing it, which I didn't know because I'm not totally engaged, I guess, in that genre. And we fall in and out of favor with genres that fade out, kind of like how heavy metal kind of faded out, and there's still bands playing it. If you're into that stuff, it's like there's still bands playing metalcore and deathcore. Deathcore progressed into a weird hybrid, which is between deathcore and slam, which is slamcore, I guess, if you want to put a label on it. At least I think. But there's so many subgenres. Like we had this argument with my brother-in-law when I told him this is called slam. He's like, there's no fucking such thing as slam. I'm like, yo, dude, there is. Slam started, to me at least, early beginnings with 3 factors. Suffocation from Effigy of the Forgotten. I forgot what song. League of Inveracity, that had this really cool slam part in it. Jin 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 jigga jin 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 jin. Yeah, and then everything Internal Bleeding has ever done. That's what started slam. It's like those riffs, without anything else. It's just those chunky riffs, and that's what the whole song was. 2 to 3 minutes. That's pretty much your typical slam song, but that's a hybrid of death metal going on to brutal death metal, going into slam. And I remember he never he's like, no, that's not a fucking thing. I'm like, well, it doesn't show up on Wikipedia. I'm like, it doesn't fucking have to show up in Wikipedia. It's like the natural or subgenre state of metal, and metal meshes into so many subgenres. Like you have black metal, then you have war metal, then you have black and death metal, black and thrash, and it goes on from there. You have so many bands and so many genres that are out. It's just insane to think about. And you gotta give it up to bands that are pushing the boundaries, and you also gotta accept the fact that there are bands out there that have let's say a Slayer worship. Every band that sounds like Slayer is not a blatant rip off of Slayer. It's just their influence. When you have a band or you try to play guitar and do certain things, I hate those people that think that I don't have influence or this is just me playing this shit. Man, fuck that shit. Fuck you, whoever you think that way. Because you have to base it off of something, and I don't mean that as a fucking general rule, like saying like cult black metal has to have a rule. No, what I mean by that is that you think of things that you're passionate about. Doesn't necessarily have to mean music, as in your state of mind, your state of politics. Because politics, even though I don't like to think about them in metal, there's a lot of politics in fucking metal. But whether is it the earth, your spirit, your feelings, your love, your hate, all goes into the way you create music. And for you to say, "Oh, this is just fucking me, fucking, this is what comes out," no, 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 fuck you. There's never a thing. You may not realize what you're doing, but someone else might. Someone else might like, oh, that shit sounds like, subconsciously may sound like something that you do love, you do like. So I'm totally kind of lost in the whole subject of elitism, but it's part in there in a way, because when you take that stance, like, this is what I create and this is just me doing this. No, it's not. Don't have that mentality, because you're closing your own mind in. Because after a point, you won't have anything original to make. You have to embrace what you love. This is my fucking influences: brutal, grindcore, darkened fucking black metal. And you have to grab shit from stuff you love. As a metal fan, you have to embrace what you grew up with. You're protected of your music, you're protected of yourself, and you're protected of your image. Granted. But you have to have an open mind. And that's the blurred line that I think exists between being a hardcore fan of a certain genre, of a certain state of mind, of a certain feeling that you have, where you're totally into fucking black metal, that you think, Satan. But guess what? You have to go to work. So, just have an open mind. Explore genres. Like I say to everybody, I don't really like power metal. Like, I fucking, it's not my cup of tea, but there are some power metal songs that I do. When you put it on, I'm like, fuck, like a fucking little girl too. And we're all that way. We all get caught off guard denouncing something, and then on the flip coin, we're like, oh fuck, didn't you say you didn't like that shit? What the fuck are you doing? You do like that shit. So cheers. I gotta get another beer. Hold on. And I gotta pee real bad. And this video is almost like half an hour long. It's 28 minutes, so this is definitely going fucking very, very bad. For those of you who stick around, and this is going to become apparently a fucking series of metalhead ramblings, or ramblings of a metalhead, whatever the fuck I called it. Cheers. My whole point in this whole thing is that do not think that you should be so defensive and not open-minded to new things and new genres that spring out that you're like, fuck that shit. That's not real metal. Because it is. It is labeled under metal. Excuse me. Now we had this whole progression between death metal, brutal death metal, technical death metal, and now you have tech death. And then between tech death and brutal death metal, you had what do you call it, deathcore. For those of you who might not accept that, it is in there somewhere. So just try to have an open mind on things, learn new things, and like I always end these things. Take care of each other, take care of yourself, support local bands and other bands you like by buying their merchandise, getting into their shit, and yeah. So peace out. Take it easy. Cheers.